Hello? Hello? Hi? Can everyone hear me? Okay, the meeting will come to order. I can't believe how excited I am to see everyone. This is wonderful. It's not a wonderful evening. Not a great weather, but I said, boy, are we dedicated, let me tell you. So, for the record, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first in-person full board hybrid meeting since last February of 2020. It's really good to see you all, really. As most of you know, can everyone hear me okay? It's a little muffled. Okay. As most of you know, on June 24th, we learned that on the 25th, next day, the executive order allowing remote meetings was going to expire and was not going to be renewed. All the members of the board are now required to attend both committee and full board meetings in person in order to be counted in quorum and to vote. This meant that within a very short period of time, we had to make sure members were available to attend upcoming meetings in person, and then we had to find venues that were available and willing to accommodate both committee and full board meetings. Needless to say, it was not an easy task. Just ask Marisa. On very short notice, the National Weather Service is giving me a flash warning. Hold on. Okay. On very short notice, a member of our board came to the rescue, and I'd like to thank Todd Shapiro and his NYC Seminar and Conference Center for so graciously and generously providing tonight's space. Todd and a small number of his staff worked with the district office to make this now hybrid meeting possible. We truly are grateful. And thank you. We can't thank you enough, Todd. As usual, we'll begin our meeting by hearing from our elected officials. Those who are in attendance will be recognized first, followed by those who have joined remotely. And those who are remote, please use the raised hand feature. The elected officials will be followed by any representatives of other electeds following the same procedure I just mentioned, and they may report to the board for 2 minutes each. We then have the public session, which is the opportunity for anyone from the public to bring information to the board. Anyone wishing to speak, please sign up by 6:30. Be sure to include the subject you will be addressing, as well as contact information, should we need to do so. Again, those who might be in attendance will be recognized first, followed by those who have joined remotely. And then please use the raised hand feature. Remember, there's a time limitation of 2 minutes, and please respect the time constraints that the board faces during each of its meetings. We then enter the business session. The board enters into this session, which consists of the adoption of the minutes, the chair's report, committee reports, resolutions, a question and comment period, and voting. Comments or questions from either applicants or the public, or if additional information is needed, are allowed only with the chair's approval. So I'll start this evening's meeting by calling on, are any of the electeds here? Or I think we have reps. We have one rep so far. And let's see. Okay, we actually have 3 representatives. So let's start with coming up to, if you're here in person, which you are, please come up to the podium in 3s, starting with Franklin Richards, Kate Scherer, and Tevin Williams. Right here. Yeah, you can come up.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. It's actually good to see you all in person. Now you can actually see me read from my notes. So I just want to wish you all a happy fiscal year 22. So most of my report will be based on the council's budget approval that they just had last week. So starting off with New York City Public Schools, who received an additional $605 million for next school year to ensure that they're fully funded under the student funding formula, as well as $27 million will go to citywide literacy program. And additional resources have been allocated for full-time social workers and in-house mental health services. As part of trying to help New York City clean up post-pandemic, cuts to the New York City Sanitation Department have been reversed as part of the budget approval. The city also launched the City Cleanup Corps, a new program dedicated to recovery that will beautify our city and will also add 10,000 new jobs. The city is also restarting its curbside composting program. Enrollment will begin around August, and the program itself, service and collection, should begin in October. You can call 311 to sign up, or usually I drop the link in the chat, but you can also visit www.nyc.gov/curbside composting. I am also pleased to report on behalf of Councilmember Keith Powers that in his discretionary budget, he has allocated $5,000 to Community Board 5. He sent you both an email earlier today. So congratulations, Community Board 5. And finally, the city has invested $1 billion into what they're calling the Rainy Day Fund. So if anything should come up in the future, we have funds that we can go into. So as always, that is my time. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or hilarious insights, you can always ask me at the end of this meeting or email me at frichards@council.nyc.gov. Thanks,
Okay.
folks.
Thank you. Kate.
Hi, good evening. I'm filling in for my colleague, Jeremy Tillinger. Hi, how are you?
Okay.
So some of my updates are similar to Franklin's. The City Council recently passed fiscal year 2022 budget, which thankfully includes funding from the Biden administration, which is going to fund city agencies with the dollars they need so we can continue to invest in the city's recovery. FY22 also includes $112 million in mental health crisis funding and $50 million for a new public health corps to expand healthcare access in at-need communities. Again, also $1 billion for the city's rainy day fund, $19 million for the restoration of sanitation services, including curbside pickup, curbside composting rather, and an additional $11 million for litter basket collection services, $27 million in cure violence programs, and $135 million for small businesses and arts and cultural institutions. Also here to share that Carlina was relieved to hear that Mount Sinai's recent announcement that it will not move forward with relocation and it will remain at the East 16th and East 17th Street campus. We know that many CB5 residents rely on this critical healthcare facility, and Carlina fought for this for years to reach a point as the chair of the Committee on Hospitals. Now she's joining with advocates to demand full breadth of the community's demands are met, including a return to previously removed inpatient beds and medical services and better community involvement. Also, she was able to advocate with the City Property Tax Reform Commission, calling for the implementation of recommendations for tax rates for longtime CB5 and working class homeowners. I see the time's almost up, that's why I'm rushing, but that is all. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tevin Williams. I'm the new community liaison from Senator Brett Hoylman's office. It's nice to meet all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Barbaro. Thank you for bringing up the first point I wanted to speak about, which is the senator has a bill that he has introduced called S7261, which will help with the public meetings hybrid model that we are doing right now. So essentially, once the chair has spoken about, this executive order was repealed. He introduced a bill to try and help, since a lot of our community boards had to cancel most of their meetings since they could not find the spaces to do so. This bill addresses this problem. We're planning to bring both a hybrid model to our community board meetings. So the senator wants to address this with this bill. During the end of session, the senator passed this whole session 45 bills, including several of his legislative priorities that passed both the House and the legislature. One of them was the Jose Weber Untraceable Firearms Act, which was S14A, which bans the sale of the ghost guns. The Gender Recognition Act, which makes it easier for gender and non-conforming New Yorkers to obtain government-issued IDs. This was actually just signed into law by the governor. Criminal justice reform legislation, which just helped with S689. And then finally, I would just like to bring up the Adult Survivors Act, which did not pass the Assembly, but we're going to advocate for that next session. And last but not least, thank you. The senator wants to thank all of you for your support for elder parole. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? Those are those through. All right. Yeah, okay. Okay, Luke, any elected reps remotely?
Yes, we have
Carolyn Maloney's office. Okay, Betsy?
Hi, I think I'm all, we're giving this a go. I think, okay, here we go. So on Tuesday, Congresswoman Maloney introduced the Women and Minorities in STEM Booster Act, which would support programs designed to increase participation for women and minorities in science, technology, engineering, and math. Under this bill, grants would support online workshops, mentoring opportunities to connect professionals with students, internships, and outreach programs for K through 12 students. Last week, she also voted with her colleagues to pass HR 3684, the Investing in a New Vision for Environment and Surface Transportation in America, or the Invest in America Act. And this legislation makes transformational investments in America's highways, roads, bridges, transit, rail, and water infrastructure to create jobs, modernize our infrastructure, and reduce carbon pollution. She also joined with the consumer protection advocates to announce the introduction of the Overdraft Protection Act. This bill will crack down on predatory overdraft fees and would establish fair and transparent practices for overdraft coverage programs. I also want to talk about this month is the first time people will be receiving the increased child tax credit, which is starting monthly payments. So for every child 6 through 17 years old, families will get a $250 a month. And for every child in your house under 6 years old, families will get $300 a month. If you file taxes, so about 80% of people will get those as a direct deposit. The other 20% will get it as a check. For people who don't make enough money to file taxes, they can apply at childtaxcredit.gov. They are still eligible to get those payments. So we'd encourage them to go. It's very quick and easy to apply, and they can start getting those monthly payments. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our office. And I think with that, I will say, I'm excited you all are back. Can't wait to be back in person in September with you guys.
Thank you so much, Betsy. Next is Lori from Speaker's Office, Johnson.
Thanks,
Lori?
Betsy. Yeah, hi. Can everybody hear me? Which, for everybody's tired of hearing that. So good evening. Thank you for the time. I have a few highlights to share from the Speaker's Office directly regarding our district. We have $935,000 for new technology, including computers and printers for public schools throughout District 3. Theaters in our district will be receiving funding for upgrades and renovations, including a green roof for the new 42nd Street Theater. Some of the other beneficiaries are the Roundabout, Manhattan Theater Club, and the Joyce. Funding was also allocated for critical programming and services for Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen. They were allocated over $15,000. $250,000 for tenant protection work in our district by housing conservation coordinators. And Hudson Guild and Encore Community, Hartley House, and Penn South Social Services all received funding for their critical programming for seniors and for the community. I will put any of the relevant links for the budget in the chat for those who are on Zoom. There is an urgent call for blood donors. The Speaker's office is partnering with Hartley House to support the New York Blood Center with a community drive on Thursday, July 29th from 12 to 6. You can either call our office 212-564-7757 for more information. Or for those on the Zoom, I can put the link in the chat to schedule an appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, don't see anyone else?
No other elected.
Okay. That means we move into the public session, starting with Samir Lavinia and Tom Mulaney.
Perfect. All righty, cool. So I'm here to talk about the bus lane proposal on Fifth Avenue and some of the bike lane stuff too, that's proposed to happen there, and like the pedestrian safety and all that stuff. I'm a huge supporter of all these changes. I was looking at them earlier today and previously, and Fifth Avenue just has like so many people biking on it. It's not safe, and we need to make it safe before someone gets killed. Adding a bike lane would really help with that. I know that like there are definitely some concerns about how pedestrian safety and bicycle safety intersect. And it's been shown time and time again that when you add a protected bike lane, people use it, which means that the people who bike there get off the sidewalk, they feel safer in the street, so they're going to bike in the bike lane. And that's way better for everyone. It reduces conflicts on the sidewalk. It makes it easier for pedestrians to walk around. It makes it safer for bikers. So I really encourage the board to fully support any additional bike infrastructure on Fifth Avenue, just because it will make it a lot safer for everyone, not just cyclists, but also drivers and who might be worried about hitting someone, and pedestrians as well. Yeah, there's just like not a ton of like bike infrastructure in Midtown, and this would be a huge help. Like if you ride a bike, it just makes sense that if you don't feel safe, you're gonna go somewhere where you do feel safe. And unfortunately, right now, that is the sidewalk. So I really hope you consider supporting this bike lane and additional bike lanes that will come to your community board in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Tom here?
Hi. The subject that I wanted to bring up is street cleaning on my block, 26th Street between 6th and 7th. We have signs on that street, which we have had for a very, very long time. No parking 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. There is no street cleaning indication, the broom with the superimposed on the P. There's just a moon, which I guess indicates nighttime parking. In the past, we have had a street sweeper go up the street, and cars were either not there or towed on the north side for the street cleaning, but that stopped about maybe a year ago. And we also have a cab stand with about 5 or 6 cabs that line up to take breaks, and they leave a considerable amount of trash, which is no fault of their own. They have no place to put it. In the past, the street cleaning took care of that. Also, I did call the community board and was informed that unless we have street cleaning signs, the broom superimposed on the P, we just have commercial parking at that point, which is what we do. and everybody is responsible for 18 inches from the curb. Unfortunately, nobody does that. And also, we had the street cleaning up until recently. So the issue is we're at a little bit of a kind of a catch-22 where we did have street cleaning, but there was no reason to have street cleaning because of the sign, but then it stopped. But we still have all the things that you would need the street cleaning for. So I'm just wanted to bring that up to the community board. Can we say, get the signs changed so that we have some sort of street cleaning on the street alternate side? Or I don't know what else. That was the issue I wanted to bring up, which was we have right at the moment, we have no way of cleaning the street, which unless we do it ourselves. And I don't see that being something that the whole block would be doing, because they think that the street cleaners are still cleaning the street, which they're not.
Okay, thank you,
Right,
Tom.
thank you.
Have you been in touch with the board office?
I have, I
Okay,
spoke to
good.
them, and
Okay.
they
Good.
said that this summer they were going to be doing
Okay,
a walkthrough of different, on that subject
Okay,
in
great.
particular, but I just, because there was a,
Mhm.
public hearing, I just wanted to bring that
Okay.
up to
Yes,
see.
thank you. We
what-
appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I think, do we have anyone from the public online? We do. Okay. So we have a lot. It looks like Miles, what does that say? Lewis.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. I did not put myself down to speak.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so Lisa's.
Oh, sorry.
Lisa Wager?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi. Wow, I wish I was there. I took the please, stay home if you can, realistically, but I'll see you all in September. So I have two small bits of news, one big bit of news. FIT is, moving up. First of all, hi, I'm Lisa Wager. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations at the Fashion Institute of Technology, SUNY College in the district. Students from FIT's master degree program in cosmetics and fragrance marketing and management presented their capstone project, The Future of Consumerism, virtually. You can see it on FIT's YouTube channel. They studied how COVID-19 triggered shifts in consumer mindsets and the accompanying impact on brands and retailers in the post-pandemic world. They looked at 16 countries. The capstone project is a two-part study. Part one addresses the shift from shareholder-led capitalism to consumer-led capitalism. Take that, Bill Ackerman. And part two examines the evolving values of U.S. consumers and their emotional relationship to purchasing. It's really quite interesting. Again, you can see it on FIT's YouTube channel. More good news, Elena Romero, Assistant Professor, Advertising and Marketing Communications, did a segment for the CUNY TV magazine show Latinas, and her episode about Latina Muslims won a Silver Telly. The Telly Awards recognizes the best work created in television and across video for all screens, and for some reason I don't understand, the silver is the highest level. Here's some big news. FIT is reopening for in-person classes for the fall semester. The campus will reopen on Monday, August 2nd. All staff and administrators who aren't on scheduled vacation or have other reasons for not being present will return to campus. The first day of classes is Monday, August 30th. And SUNY's vaccination policy that all students must be vaccinated once the FDA has lifted the current emergency status of the vaccine is in place at the college. Have a great rest of the summer. I look forward to seeing you all in September.
Thank you. Next up is Paul Crickler.
Okay, Paul, you should unmute.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me talk here. I'm talking also about Fifth Avenue, the bus, bike, and pedestrian widening. I'm hugely in support of this as well. I attended the most recent Transportation Committee meeting for CB5 a couple of weeks ago, and it was very clear that a number of the board members seemed supportive of the idea of bike lanes, but were going to ask the DOT that they, or say to the DOT, they would not be talking about these until the DOT came back to address what they thought were pedestrian safety issues. So my main message here is just like the first speaker, Samir, putting in a bike lane makes the whole thing safer, not just for people on bikes, but people crossing the street as well, pedestrians, not just for the ways that Samir pointed out, but also just by narrowing the distance you have to walk across because of the island there for the bike lane. Very briefly, a couple of numbers, because numbers are important here. These are real data. Comparing 3rd Avenue with no bike lane to 1st Avenue with a protected bike lane, just between 34th and 42nd, the numbers are dramatically different. For 3rd Avenue, since in 2019, there were 180 crashes, only 78 on 1st Avenue with the protected bike lane. There were 10 pedestrians and cyclists injured on 3rd Avenue and only 6. And there was 1 death on 3rd Avenue and none on 1st Avenue. So putting in a protected bike lane is better for all. This plan also has a wider sidewalk, which is fantastic improvement in safety because it's too squished there. 5th Avenue right now, where we're talking about, is very dangerous. In the last 2 years and change, there have been almost 500 crashes. There have been 62 motorists injured. So I'm asking this community board not to put any obstacles in the way of bike lanes and changes like this, and not to demand something from the DOT that's existing already. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up will be Charles Todd.
Okay, Charles, you can.
Hi, my name is Charles Todd. I am a resident of West 54th Street. I too want to talk about Fifth Avenue. Like most Manhattan residents, our family does not own a car. Bikes are our primary mean of transportation. I have a cargo bike that fits both my children, ages 7 and 3. The 3 of us all ride together. And I believe we should be encouraging the DOT to build protected bike lanes that are suitable for families like mine, suitable for everyone. As climate change concerns grow, it's critical that we work towards encouraging people to seek out alternatives to private vehicles. Bike lanes and busways are the green way to go. And Fifth Avenue really deserves a complete street with more room for pedestrians, protected bike lanes, and a dedicated busway. I am strongly in support of proposal. I use the 6th Avenue lane with my family. I use the 8th Avenue lane with my family, the 1st and the 2nd, and it would give us a lot more options to be able to use the 5th Avenue lane. And as we have seen on all of the other Manhattan avenues that have expanded to protected bike lanes, as some of the other commenters have noted, it has been created a safer environment. And like all cyclists, I'm also a pedestrian, and I understand pedestrian concerns. And personally, I feel a lot more comfortable walking on an avenue like 6th Avenue or 8th Avenue, where I do have that pedestrian island with easier cross time. And I know that the bikes are not going to be in the sidewalk because they're in the protected lanes. So thank you all, and I urge the board to support the 5th Avenue proposal.
Thank you. Next up is Steve Chao or Chao.
Steve, you
Chow?
should unmute.
Okay, I will unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thanks for inviting me. I am also in support of the bike lane. There isn't a bike lane in the Midtown area completely from 3rd Avenue, Lexington Avenue, Park Avenue, Madison Avenue, 5th Avenue. Everyone's goal is to get to from point A to point B, whether you're a pedestrian or a motorist or a bicyclist. Now, if you don't build a road, the cars will simply drive on the sidewalks. If there's no sidewalk, the pedestrian will be all over the road. It's the same thing with bicycles. We need a dedicated bike path. The math is really simple, that bicyclists are really afraid of cars because the equation is force is equal to mass times acceleration. A car is 3,000 pounds. A bike with a person on is 200 pounds. has a 15-time difference. Plus the acceleration is another 5-time difference. So all you need is the car to tap a bicycle, and that bicycle will go completely uncontrollable. Therefore, the bicyclists, what are their choices? They have a choice of either going on the sidewalk, which is going up against someone who's about the same weight, or take your chances on the avenues. So for safety reasons, I strongly suggested the community board to consider creating a protected bike lane going down Fifth Avenue. And as you can see from 6th Avenue, once we created that bike path, that the traffic goes smoother. Everyone wants to go from where they want to go without encumbering the other people. Going back to the force is equal to mass time acceleration example, it's like if you're on a pool table and you have 2 balls of the same weight bumping against each other, then...
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up, Gabriel Lefferts.
Gabriel, you should unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Gabriel Lefferts. I'm with the Municipal Art Society of New York. I'm here to share our comments on the proposal for 175 Park Avenue. So the magnitude of the proposed tower in discussion has the potential to forever alter the Grand Central Terminal area and the iconic New York City skyline. While the redevelopment of the outdated Grand Hyatt site is most welcome and the proposed pedestrian and transit improvements much needed, the Municipal Art Society fears the tower's height and bulk may overwhelm this important area of the city and Grand Central itself. We view the building's street level setbacks on 42nd Street and Lexington Avenue as an improvement from current conditions. That said, the project's draft environmental impact statement, the DEIS, depicts a significant difference between the no action and with action view east on 42nd Street of the Chrysler Building. The DEIS also depicts the dramatic impact the building would have on the New York City skyline from Long Island City, wherein it would completely dominate surrounding buildings. Despite these impacts, the DEIS concludes that the development would have no significant adverse impact on surrounding historic and visual resources. Moreover, the renderings in the DEIS are woefully simplistic and inadequate for a project of this scale. MAS therefore requests that the final environmental impact statement include 1, more detailed drawings so that the public might better assess the tower's design, 2, additional views of the building from afar, including from Brooklyn, the Bronx, and New Jersey, and 3, a proposal for a scaled down alternative that, like One Vanderbilt, tapers much more dramatically through the middle and the top of the structure. And just a brief note on open space. Although 5,000 square feet of open space was added to the proposal since the release of the DEIS, it is unclear what the impetus was for the addition and how and where the added square feet would be allocated. MAS is also not convinced that the casual passerby will even be aware that the second floor terraces are publicly accessible. To address these issues and more, MAS requests that the FEIS include 1, specific details on where this 5,000 square feet of additional open space will be allocated, 2, shadow and wind evaluations for project generated open spaces, as well as a daylight evaluation. And last, a detailed signage plan that clearly indicates that the terraces are a part of the public realm. Our extended comments have been shared with the community board, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up will be B. Friedman.
Okay, B, you can...
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. So thank you, CB5. I also want to give my huge support for the redesign of Fifth Avenue with a complete street with a bike lane, widened sidewalk, bus lanes. I think it's fabulous. I walk on Fifth Avenue all the time with my family. I live and work in Midtown. And last Transportation CB5 committee, they had some concerns about bike enforcement. So I just wanted to share with you that Streets Blog reported that since January 2019, there have been at least 18 pedestrian injuries from cars and trucks. And at the same time, 0 pedestrian injuries from people riding bikes. So I understand CB5's concerns, But as a pedestrian, I'm much more worried about my children getting run over by an SUV than a bicycle. So I strongly support this plan as it will have a great calming effect for these SUVs, for people on bicycles. And as a pedestrian, the expanded sidewalks are just wonderful. They make me much more pleasant walking experience. And it would make me much more likely to shop on Fifth Avenue. And that pedestrianization of areas and the widened sidewalks, that's been shown all over the world to improve the business districts and improve shopping in areas, just like when they pedestrianized Herald Square area and improvement at Macy's. And finally, I urge you to consider climate change as the city is flooding from one end to another, and you have an opportunity to do something global on a small scale. So thank you very much, CB5, for this time.
Thank you. Next up is Melody Bryant.
Okay, Melody.
Hi. There's no way to bring me over and show video, is there? Because I'd like to show. All right. So if you could see, I would like to speak in favor of the DOT proposal for Fifth Avenue. If you could see the photo that I am looking at, and it's not hard to find, the street is a mess. Pedestrians are all over the place. You don't see any bikes because it's terrifying to ride a bike on Fifth Avenue. You don't see any buses because the buses aren't running because there's too much traffic. The pedestrians are literally penned on the south side and all over the place on the north side. I'm sorry, east side and west side. And the DOT proposal really tackles all of this. It tackles it from a point of safety, from a point of simple transportation and letting people get from one place to another. And also, although I don't have facts in front of me, it's very clear, having lived in New York for a long time and been on Fifth Avenue, that the people who are doing the shopping are the pedestrians. It is not people coming in limos because there's no stopping on Fifth Avenue now anyway. So it's pedestrians who are doing the shopping and everybody else is just trying to get by. So the DOT plan covers this really well. I strongly urge the board to pass it and make Fifth Avenue a complete street. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last up will be Daniel Hanji.
Okay, Daniel, you should unmute.
All right, I hope you can hear me. Hi, Daniel Hengi. It's first time attending a meeting, so thanks for letting me speak. Yeah, just wanted to come out as in support of any biking improvements. So especially the Fifth Avenue proposed bike lane. I cycle at least twice a day and it's my primary mode of transportation. Also would like to call out any sort of improvements that could be made in between Penn Station and the Port Authority bus terminal on the 8th Avenue bike lane. I'd say that's probably the bike lane where I feel, even though it's a protected bike lane, it's where I feel the least safe, particularly because you'll get drivers that block the box. And so it causes a scenario where you have pedestrians trying to move across the street, going northbound or southbound, in between a foot or 2 feet of car space. And then also having bikers trying to go in through that same space. So as a biker, I have to decide to, pass alongside pedestrians. Also scared that a driver might not notice me, and also as they try to inch forward, or I have to make the decision to actually just move into the car lane that's going northbound on 8th Avenue. So as we consider more biking improvements, I also want to call out that part of the 8th Avenue lane. Lastly, and I'll just reiterate again, fully in support of a Fifth Avenue protected bike lane. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that concludes the public session. Am I right, Luke?
Yes.
We don't have anyone
any
else.
other.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. That brings us to the business session of the board. As I mentioned, that this is where only board members take part. And I will start by opening it with the adoption of the June minutes. May I have a motion to adopt? Mike, and a second? Okay, thank you. Roll call vote.
Athenale. Yes. Eichmann. Yes. Rosnahan.
Yes.
Chu.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Goshnow.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Hartman. Yes. Hirschberg. Yes. John, Kayback.
Yes.
Lagasico.
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lustig.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Sigmund.
Yes.
Slutsky, yes. Schinkel.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Weintraub.
Yes.
Whalen.
Yes.
Yang.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
Yes.
Sam.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, the minutes are adopted, and as chair's report, I'd like to bring you all up to date on something because it is a subject that I know you've been wondering about, and you did mention, some of you mentioned it already this evening. So I did mention earlier the facts leading up to our having this in-person meeting tonight. And I just want to let you all know of the collective Manhattan Community Board's response that has been sent in a letter to the governor earlier this week. In our letter, we pointed out that we all quickly adapted our operations to abide by the exec order to continue our New York City charter mandated public duties. And for 15 months, the boards conducted virtual public meetings to great success. The ability to join remotely, whether online or by phone, has allowed board members to perform their duties safely and has increased engagement from the public, many of whom were previously unable to attend in-person meetings due to their schedules and personal commitments. So in January of 2021, Manhattan Community Board 6 conducted a survey that asked for public input on how meetings should be conducted post-pandemic. And the results show that the public is overwhelmingly in favor of continuing to meet remotely. In fact, 74% of the public that were surveyed preferred meeting remotely. Over half of the community residents polled revealed that remote meetings allowed them to attend a board meeting for the first time. In short, this version of the open meetings law that was in effect until last week actually made meetings more open. We asked that this information be shared in a public forum with agencies to ensure that any decisions regarding the open meetings law would not only take into account the voices of the public, but would also demonstrate adaptation to and learning from the challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic. We mentioned that even though New York State has been successful in vaccination rates and has seen declining COVID-19 hospitalizations and positivity, the Manhattan Community Boards are concerned about a sudden return to in-person meetings only. And we pointed out that many upcoming meetings have been planned for months with full agendas, guest speakers, and the expectation that attendees can attend remotely. So we included in our letter that given that several community boards rely on local organizations for spaces to hold in-person meetings, many of which are not ready to hold meetings of this nature and size, we must now scramble to find public space or, in some cases, cancel meetings. We have to figure out proper health precautions for in-person meetings without guidance to guarantee public safety and force members, many of whom may have health considerations, to return to in-person meetings to ensure quorum. We already had a couple of people tonight that couldn't be here for safety reasons, even with social distancing. We emphasized our request that in the immediate future, the governor work with the state legislature to allow community boards and other public bodies throughout the state to operate remotely. Finally, our letter pointed out that the pandemic demonstrated how the current open meetings law is antiquated and that the lifting of restrictions does not mean that people will revert to the behaviors of a pre-pandemic world. We all believe that a post-pandemic New York State requires that our open meetings law be amended to reflect how the pandemic has changed our behaviors and the ability to provide public service to our communities. As this process to adapt our open meetings law to the realities of a post-pandemic world evolves, we ask the governor to ensure that the conversations are inclusive of public voices. We are hoping for a timely response, and we'll keep you all updated as to what that response might be and how it might unfold. I know you're all thinking of it, and we all have questions as to what's going to happen in the future. So I'll keep you all up to date hopefully as things unfold. Having said that, I would like to mention that today I found out we are losing two of our board members. One is not with us tonight, and that is a relatively new member, Chris Clark, and the other is Rachel Weintraub. And I'm really sorry to see her go. Rachel, we will miss you. I don't know if you want to say anything and tell people why you're leaving. It's not because you don't love us. Take the mic, Rachel.
I'm going to business school, not New York, so I think I'm not allowed to be on CB5 if I don't, live here. So it's been great. So thanks for the warm wishes.
We'll miss you, and maybe you'll come back. Okay, thank you. All right, we will now move into the full board agenda, starting with reports from our committee chairs or vice chairs, starting with Joint Transportation Environment, Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee, and that is Layla.
All right, good evening, everyone. So glad to see you all. So we had an application this past 2 months for a redevelopment at 175 Park Avenue, also known as Project Commodore, also known as Grand Hyatt. So this is a ULURP application, and it was reviewed jointly by the Land Use and the Transportation and Environment Committees of this board. So a number of you have sat through those meetings. And this project actually came to us multiple times prior to this particular occurrence for the scope of work of the redevelopment, as well as for the landmarks portion of this project. So we're all kind of like familiar with what is happening over there. So we basically took the 2 months that we are allowed to review this application. It was very complex, complicated, dense, a lot of information. And a lot of actions that this developer wants to take in order for this particular building to be constructed. The project entails the demolition of the existing Grand Hyatt Hotel located at the corner of 42nd Street and Lexington Avenue. And in its place, they are proposing to build a large tower under the framework of the East Midtown new district that was created in 2017. So a number of aspects I would like to emphasize for this proposal. In order to reach the density that the developer is proposing, they have to do a number of improvements, including infrastructure and transit improvements. So, I will, Vicky, I would like the resolution to be deemed read, so I don't have to read the 7 pages. Hopefully you had a chance to
No,
take.
I think you should read, I think you should read it.
I know, it's so good to be back, right?
Okay, deemed read.
But hopefully you had a chance to look at it. But basically, the transit improvements include, a substantial amount of work. It includes widening Grand Central Terminal's 42nd Street passageway, enlarging and redesigning and adding a staircase to the R238 fare control area, which is basically the entrance from the passageway into the subway area. Build the short loop connection, which is basically going to provide subway access from under Grand Central Terminal into the East Side Access platform and Metro North lower level platforms. And this is actually really the big chunk of what these improvements are. And then removing the girders that are currently take up subway mezzanine floor space and that basically support the current building and that are going to be eliminated when it is demolished and then when the new building goes up. So according to the MTA, these transit improvements are going to raise the level of service. This is actually how they measure improvements. So it's going to go from an E grade to a C grade in some parts, and then from a D grade to an A grade in other parts of the improvements. The developers are also proposing to pay and to fund pedestrian and commuter circulation improvements. So they're doing some work. They're enlarging a sidewalk. They are increasing the height of the Lexington Avenue passageway. They are proposing a new entrance and exit from the proposed tower into Grand Central Terminal. They are actually converting they're actually reopening a door, a gate into Grand Central. What the applicant is also doing in exchange for added density is the creation of 25,000 square feet of public outdoor space. Outdoor space that will surround the tower at the second and third level. So the building basically on 42nd Street will be sort of like hugged by 2 grand staircases that lead to an open space that will be planted and programmed and designed in order to provide adequate services to the public. Seating, benches, water features, some artwork that is currently curated and for which actually the community board has been asked to provide input. So there will be basically 4 sides. The Chrysler Terrace will face Lexington Avenue and will provide new views onto the Chrysler building that currently don't exist. So we saw that as a positive. The Gray Bar Terrace, which is on the 3rd level of this open space, is towards the north of the building and will be programmed. There will be a kiosk, cafe with transparent walls that will basically, provide eyes onto the area and will provide activation. And then the Grand Central Terrace will be to the east and will basically sort of like hug the viaduct and will, once again provide access and views that do exist because you actually can walk there currently, but it's very, very underutilized. So it will increase the level of utilization. We did discuss the possibility of actually making the viaduct pedestrian in this particular area. And although currently the DOT is not planning that, we're hoping that, we can continue to advocate for, pedestrianization of the viaduct. So basically those are, the main upgrades in exchange for which the developer is asking for this added density. In order for this building to be built, there's a number of waivers and special permits that need to be obtained. Some of them are really technical and we didn't have any issue with them. Others are technical and we did have issues with them. And others are more, substantial and could have other impacts and could set precedents. So I'm just going to walk you through the ones that we did have issues with. The first one is that the text amendment, they're seeking a text amendment that would allow 2 or more contiguous zoning lots to be one qualifying site. Basically, what the applicant is doing is a lot merger that doesn't have the name of a lot merger, but nonetheless will basically merge the site of the Grand Central Terminal with the site where the building is going to go up. And that big, huge site is going to be the base for the density multiplier. So as you know, the way density bonuses are granted are a ratio. So you basically take the size of your lot and you multiply it by a certain number. In that case, the applicant is seeking, I believe, a total of 4.27 plus 6. So total 10, close to 10 additional FAR. So by basically merging those 2 lots that are very substantial in size, they are creating added density to the level that basically we see. This is why this building is going to be so dense. In order to do that, they are seeking a text amendment. And we felt that the language of the text amendment was too vague and could basically be applied to other sites. And that was really not the intent of this particular zoning text amendment. And also it's not the intent of the underlying zoning. So we basically want the language to be actually strengthened so that it could apply to this particular site. We don't really object to that, but it has to be really targeted to this particular project and should not become a precedent for others. So that was one issue. The other issue that we had, and that you heard about with the testimony from the Municipal Art Society, is actually about the daylight evaluation. It's a complicated technical metrics that basically measures the amount of daylight that reaches the sidewalk. And you probably have felt that in downtown. It feels very much like a canyon because at the time these buildings were built downtown in the financial district and municipal district, regulations to protect daylight actually did not exist. In Midtown, there is a much more porous feeling when you walk the streets. You basically can feel that the light is reaching the sidewalk. So the framework of the East Midtown rezoning actually says that we need to protect that. It is important. And this building meets the criteria for the 42nd Street, but does not meet the criteria for the Lexington side. And we feel that the massing of the building should be reworked so that they achieve a better score. The other issue that we had is that the developers are basically taking over Depew Place. Depew Place is the twin brother to Vanderbilt Avenue. So to the west of the Grand Central Terminal, you have Vanderbilt Avenue, and then to the east, you have Depew Place. And Depew Place was demapped a very long time ago and is basically sort of like conflated with a viaduct. The viaduct sort of like, goes up and Depew Place is underneath. But Depew Place is used for traffic mostly by the post office that has its access from 44th Street to the north of the development site. What the developer is doing is that they're basically taking Depew Place and adding it to their measurement for their density. So they're basically generating density because of Depew Place, which is a public street. Although it is demapped, it is nonetheless public space. And we feel that, it is setting a very dangerous precedent because all of a sudden you could have developers, taking over or making their calculation for added density on sidewalks or streets or even parks, although they would not build on these areas, but they would basically take these areas and include them into the footprint of their qualifying site to basically generate more density that they would mass in their building. So we're objecting to that. Overall, we passed a resolution that approves the proposal with very, very strict restrictions. So it's a very conditional approval that basically addresses these issues that I just raised. Another one that I want to mention, because hopefully this will come back to us, the open space is going to be regulated under a restrictive declaration that is basically language that is recorded in the deed of the property with the register of, each building, has a deed that basically says, how it is operated, and that is recorded with the Department of Finance. So the regulations are going to be in a restrictive declaration. And currently the applicant was not able to tell us what these conditions are going to be for this open space, hours of operation, the kind of activity that would be permitted. Would it be privatized at any time in the future? Are they planning to hold commercial events? Can they rent it? So all of the good stuff that we deal with, for example, when we are reviewing POPs, the applicant was not able to give us the specifics. So we're hoping that we will negotiate those conditions with the developer as they formulate the programming for the space. So basically, those were the main conditions. There are other that are more technical, but if you have any questions, by all means. But basically, this is the gist of what this proposal entails.
Okay. Does anyone have any conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Yes, Mary.
Layla, as usual, I'm blown away by all the work that you did. Thank you so much. Do you have any comments related to the Municipal Art Society and their statements about just the bulk of the building and its relationship to the Chrysler building? Sure, like many people, I just consider the Chrysler building the Art Deco gem. And I'm just picturing this hulking figure next to it, the way that the Pan Am building has completely dominated Park Avenue. That's my main concern. I share their concerns also about the access to the second floor, et cetera, but I think that's the big elephants in the street.
Yes, totally. So this is something that, we did discuss quite a bit. It is going to be one of the densest buildings ever built in the city, in Midtown. It is going to be much denser than One Vanderbilt, which, when that was going up, made us choke. We wrestled with this issue. I think what ended up convincing us that, the trade-off was acceptable for conditional approval was that they are creating additional views to the Chrysler building that currently don't exist, that will be publicly available and accessible with this new terrace. And the building itself is going to be pushed back from the property line. So it is going to, they are enlarging the sidewalk on 42nd Street slightly. It's not a tremendous gesture that they're making, but they are trying to be a little more differential to the Chrysler building by pushing back the building at the base so that, the visibility, the view corridor on 42nd Street will actually be slightly better than what it is today. So there's no denying that a number of view corridors will be absolutely destroyed. They will no longer exist. It will have a profound effect on the skyline. That's no denying that. The issue I think that we have more philosophically over the skyline is that currently there is no tool in the toolbox to deal with that. There's nothing in the zoning or in the landmarks law or in the design, the Public Design Commission to basically address these questions. If you want my opinion, I'm stepping aside from my role as a chair, but my opinion is that it's a huge flaw of the New York City Charter. I think that, the zoning resolution and the landmarks rules should have a provision to actually deal with view corridors. Because in the end, when you get the environmental impact statement, it basically says, yes, the views are going to be altered. We're not going to see the building from, such and such and such viewpoint. And by the way, there's no mechanism to actually address that. So, I think it's a flaw of the text.
Do the second floor promenade or view, it's basically a view onto the second floor of the Chrysler building. Is that one of the mechanisms by which that they're able to ratchet up the amount of bulk as opposed to what the Municipal Art Society was asking for, more of a tapered approach at the top?
So the massing of the building, whether, the massing is compliant. They're basically not asking really any waivers for the massing. The amount of open space that they're providing, basically the open space falls under two categories. There's 10,000 square feet is mandatory. It's not getting you anything. It's not getting you any bonus. You need to provide it, and that's that. And they are doing that. In addition, they're providing 25,000 square feet of open space. And this is what qualifies as public realm improvement, and they are getting a bonus for that. They're not getting a bonus for the 10,000 square feet that they're mandated to provide. Does that address your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Good questions, Mary. Anyone else have questions? Mike?
Yeah, weren't there a discrepancy? They weren't sure of the height of this particular building. It was too lower, and they were waiting to find out some information. Has it been established, the height, the final height?
I'm not sure that there was any discrepancy about the height. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I thought there were two options, and they were trying to get the higher one, but there were some restrictions about that, so they were going to settle for lower. Am I not remembering that correctly?
I don't recall that. Basically, there is no height limit in this particular area. So the building can be as tall as the developer can mass the density that they have, and as tall as the engineers can make it happen. So, the height was not really part of the discussion. The massing is, what really we're talking about, so that, it's pushed back and provides more daylight at the street level. But I don't recall that there was any substantial conversation about the height of the building.
Okay, any other questions? Does anyone have any comments?
I actually have a comment.
Go ahead.
I want to thank Mike Greeley for this amazing resolution.
It is fabulous. That was going to be my comment.
Yeah. He gets all the credit for that.
Yes, fabulous resolution. Okay. Yes, Todd.
Layla, I'm just looking at the text of the resolution. Is there anything that reflects your comment about this issue of sight lines that are, interrupted or obliterated by this new construction?
I don't know that we ended up actually making it part of our conditional approval. It was part of our conversations. I would be happy to add language to that effect so that it reflects that, we did discuss it. But I don't think that, because it was not part of the reasons why we were issuing conditions on the approval, the conditional approval, the language didn't make its way in the resolution.
The reason I mention that is because in the Parks Committee, we often bring up this issue of the lack of concern or the interruption of the views of our classic landmark spaces. So your point is well taken about the fact that there's nothing in the zoning laws that seem to protect us. So we can't do anything about it, but maybe at least this is our opportunity to get it in the record that, you know, this should be a concern, and that could be a starting point for some reform effort in the future. I think we should do that.
I would consider it a friendly amendment. You have to make the amendment though.
Well, I'll make that as a friendly amendment. It should say something to the effect that we approve this, but, you know, there should be some consideration given to the fact that this proposal is going to impact greatly these beautiful landmark views, and that should be a consideration going forward if at all possible.
Yes, that would be friendly.
Yeah.
If you can actually write it down and give it to Marisa, that would be fabulous.
Very good, Todd. That's great. Anyone else? Great suggestion. No other comments? All right, seeing none, we will take this to a vote.
Athanael. Yes. Eichmann. Yes. Rosenham.
Abstain.
Chu.
Abstain.
Joseph.
Yes.
Brewer. Yes. Garcia. Yes. Gonchar.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Hartman. Yes. Hirschberg. Yes. Hayback.
Yes.
Longseco.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Livesey.
Yes.
Lucid.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Miller. Yes. Shapiro.
Yes.
Sigmund. Yes. Slutsky. Yes. Schenkel.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Weintraub.
Yeah.
Whalen.
Yes.
Yang.
Okay, thank you. Luke, did you say Gail was here or she's coming? She's coming, okay. So we will move on with Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee's resolution on Grace Park Cafe.
Okay, so this is a chair certification for an open air cafe as a permitted obstruction within an existing plaza. So it's a POPS, privately owned public space. And it is adjacent to the Grace Building on 42nd Street and 6th Avenue. And towards the back of the building, as you are probably familiar, there is this big, large open space. And this open space was basically created as part of one of those quid pro quo. Oh, I think our borough president is here.
Oh, shall we? Yeah, because we're just starting. Hi, Gail. That's okay. We've only gotten the first two sentences out, so why don't we hear from you? What did you say? Oh, you sure? Okay.
Okay.
Go for it, Layla.
Thank you. Within this POPS, the obstructions are permitted. Certain types of obstructions are permitted. Open air cafes are such obstructions that are permitted. In order for an open air cafe to be approved, the chair of the City Planning Commission has to make a number of determinations. So let me tell you about the specifics of this open air cafe. Basically, in 2009, the applicant, the building, the owner of the building, appeared to the City Planning Commission and came to the community board and said they wanted an open air cafe, and it was attached to a restaurant that was at the base of the building, and they got the certification. And then they actually let the permit lapse, but they renewed it. And in 2017, the open air cafe was renewed for a total of 124 seats, still, adjacent to this one particular restaurant. Today, they're coming back to us for an alteration to this open air cafe certification, and they basically now want to have 3 open air cafes. The reason for this increase in number of open-air cafes is because the owner of the building that is now Brookfield, who acquired the building some years ago, is also the long-term tenant with a purchase option to the adjacent building that has a frontage on the plaza. And basically, they want to rent the commercial space of this adjacent building that is not part of this application at all. And this restaurant would like to have an open-air cafe onto the plaza. So what would happen is that there would be a slight reduction in number of tables and seats for the existing one that they're proposing to renew, and then they would create additional seating in front of this new restaurant that would be to the east of the plaza. Overall, we had a lengthy discussion with the applicant, who was very unclear about the data that they presented to us. It was really difficult to get to the bottom of what they're doing, but in the end, we kind of understood the footprint of what they're proposing. The issue that we had with this application is that overall, the finding that the chair of the City Planning Commission needs to make is that the open air cafe promotes public use and enjoyment of the publicly accessible open space. And basically, the stipulation that we negotiate with operators of such cafes is that we're fine with them using the space to serve their patrons, but it cannot be an exclusive use. Basically, they have to remain open to the public, and people should be able to sit and enjoy, a quiet time without a waiter saying, "Hey, you need to move," because it's reserved to the patrons of the restaurant. Most of the establishments in our district, actually, I want to say all of them, actually have agreed to these stipulations. And then we negotiate with them, the signage that they're going to put, a little sandwich board, a little, folded card on the table that basically says it's open to the public, no consumption needed. And it's very simple. In that particular case, the applicant basically refused these stipulations, and we felt that, for this reason, the finding that it would promote the public use and enjoyment of a publicly accessible open space was not met, and we recommended denial of the application.
Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this resolution? Are there any questions? Any comments? All right, seeing none, we will take it to a vote.
Yang. Whalen.
Yes.
Weintraub.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Schinkel.
Yes.
Slutsky is a yes. Sigmund.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
McCall.
Yes.
Lucic.
Yes.
Livesey.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Lagasico.
Yes.
Payback.
Yes.
Hirschberg.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Haas. Goshow.
Yes.
Garcia. Brewer. Joseph.
Yes.
Shu. Rosnahan.
Yes.
Eichmann.
Yes.
Athanail. Yes.
Okay, it passes. Thank you, Muchly. Thank you, Leila. Gail, would you like to join us?
Very nice screen.
So good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Literally.
I know, I've been out every day. So
I know you have. I know you
I
have.
didn't even know there was a
And
pandemic.
congratulations are in order.
Thank you very much. I'm not supposed to talk about that because that's political, but thank you very much. First of all, congratulations. You look fabulous. I'm embarrassed to say that I have been calling the law department every single day. I know you wrote a letter about open meetings to the governor.
Yes.
And I have called the law department every single day. I cannot get an answer. So we are trying, because I think you need both to work in tandem, which would be nice. So we want very much to have all the options that the community board needs, and so do the CECs, the school board. They have exactly the same situation. So we're trying hard, just so you know.
Great.
Second is on budget. I know you talked about it. Just so you know, every Tuesday, I think you know, at 3 o'clock, we have either discussion, now Zoom, on the vaccine or the budget. And just Tuesday, it was Preston Knee-Black. Phenomenal. He is the controller's budget person, formerly city council budget person. And he went through almost line by line some of the issues. So it's all on the borough president's website if you're interested. And then previously, somebody from IBO did a special for us on the budget for the Department of Education. Oh my goodness. There is no unit of appropriation. It is going to be a challenge. The controller's office did say that they're going to do a tracker, which would be really important for the billions and billions of federal money. And that should be up this summer. So I too am concerned about the funding and where the money's going, and hope that it can be appropriately spent. If it's not, it goes back to the federal government December 31, 2024. And in between, we need so many services, but it has to be done correctly. So just so you know, that information, every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to have more and more people talking about the budget. Might be helpful to you. One topic that maybe you agree or disagree, but the Woman Ring concession is upsetting to me. As you know, a group of partners got it, New Jersey Devils, Related, and then a whole bunch of nonprofits involved. They've all called me, every single one, to say how great they are. And they're all great. But I would have preferred the Central Park Conservancy. But this is a 5-year contract. There will be hearing at the Thomas Jefferson Recreation Center, which is in Harlem, on July 21st. You might want to weigh in. It's not far from Board 5. I believe that it's technically in Board 7, but to me, it's also part of your board. So I want to say, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but there's a huge, some people would call it an amusement park and not a rink under this scenario. Every single person called me to say, shut up, Gail. But I just want to let you know it is of concern to me. I don't know how you will feel about it, so it's up to you. But even Equinox is involved, not to mention a million different nonprofits. If you look at the press release from the mayor's office, you'll see a lot. To me, it would have made much more sense. I don't even know if they're going to get the $50 million to Central Park Conservancy had said that they could have come up with the $50 million. So why are we doing this with huge nonprofits, huge corporations, massive, massive? Okay, that's number one. I wanted to thank you also for your public realm czar. You are the ones that have been pushing that more than anybody else. I certainly agree with it. I can't tell you how many times I'm running into this with the discussions on the street. And I think that with Times Square Alliance in particular, they've been pushing it also, and they certainly want Intro 1811, which would expand the rules governing designated activities. Certainly that was an example in Times Square. Just so you know, we just had a meeting with, I happen to love the Times Square Alliance. I think Tom Harris is doing a great job, big shoes to fill. And all of the vendor representatives from the Urban Justice, whom I also love. And they all agree. It just, there isn't a lot of oversight to help them do what they want. Let me give an example. They had some ideas as to where the vendors could go, the food vendors. I then called DOT, and DOT told me to call to DOH. So then I called DOH, and then I'm back with the same problem that I just outlined. So the bid agreed, the vendors agreed, but I don't have the cities in agreement. That's craziness. Somebody should be in charge. So it's more needed than ever, because of course now you also have the CD sellers shooting each other. That's a problem. And there's nobody kind of saying they're not actually legal vendors, but they all get lumped in together. If you have somebody in charge, they can make it clearer. So I just want to bring that up. It's not hugely hot today, but it has been. We have been visiting all 53 cooling centers in the borough of Manhattan. And it's very interesting. You have to actually check the details. If you are putting information up on a website about a cooling center in a senior center or a library or school, you have to have the right hours. You also have to have the right signage, and you also have to have the right staff. So I think we've made our point to the Office of Emergency Management, and I think they have tried to accommodate that. You know, if you have air conditioning, you're fine. If you don't, it can be deathly. And so we're really clear that these cooling centers have to work and be appropriate for people who need them. We have in the Borough President's Office just a little bit of expense money. We do not have a lot. We obviously do have a lot of capital. So that information is up on our website. The deadline to apply is August 20th at 5 o'clock. The awards are not a lot. They're usually $3,500, $5,000, but if you have any groups, nonprofits that you think would be appropriate, please feel free to apply. I'm gonna go to everyone. I'm worried about the schools, just like you are. I think I've mentioned that over and over again. So we're actually gonna go to all the Summer Rising program. I hope they work. Some of the principals call them the Summer Hell program, because it's hard to get the right number of students, the right number of teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So let's hope it works. But we are going to be going to every single one. There are quite a few in Board 5 to make sure that they're actually working for the parents and the students. The July Borough Board meeting is July 15th. As you know, it's at 8:30. It is in person, and it's going to include 343 Madison Avenue, the citywide hotels text amendment, which I know people are interested in, lots of issues. Health and fitness citywide text amendment, which I call the gym amendment, but you know it better than I do. The fresh update to expand the fresh program, which is probably not a big issue in Board 5. You can come, you can testify, you can send in testimony, et cetera. I just want to be sure you know. And just something really small, but in that conference room where you've been many times, we just dedicated it to Constance Baker Motley. She was the first woman borough president. And her son came, which was very special. He too is an amazing person. And the one story I know is, I met Ruth Bader Ginsburg once. It was actually at a cultural event in Manhattan, and I went up to her table. It was a little intimidating, and I said, I am Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. And she was, as a friend of Constance Baker Motley. She gave me the dates of Constance Baker Motley's borough presidency. And then she walked away. I loved it. What a photographic mind and what a brilliant mind. Who the hell knows the dates of when Constance Baker Motley was the borough president? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Good to see you. Okay. Okay, continuing on with our Parks and Public Space Committee, Craig.
Thank you. We have 3 resolutions. I'd like to have them deemed read.
So deemed.
And I'm going to bundle them. Sorry.
And bundle.
So the change back to, based upon the open meetings law, happened, I think, one business day before the Parks Committee meeting. So we were not able to meet in person. We did meet virtually, but because of that, it was not an official meeting. We didn't take any votes. So the 3 resolutions I'm going to discuss were actually voted on by the Executive Committee. The first resolution is from the Madison Square Park Conservancy for a fundraising event, Taste of Asia, which will be held on Wednesday evening, October 6th. For the new members, Madison Square Park receives no funding from the city. Instead, it relies on contributions and revenues from a very limited number of fundraising events. The event, which will be the only one they're going to have this year, will be from 5:30 p.m. till 8:30 p.m. and will consist of food tastings from 25 restaurants and chefs serving Asian-inspired cuisine, and is a joint fundraiser with Apex for Youth and City Harvest, and it's in collaboration with Cote Korean Steakhouse, which I believe is on 22nd Street. The proceeds will be split amongst the Conservancy, Apex, and City Harvest. And the event is going to take place on the southern half of the park. They expect 800 to 1,000 visitors. Tickets are going to be $1,000 per ticket. But if you buy 20, you can get if you buy 20, it's only $15,000.
Yep.
So Vicki, for the board, that's what, 3 bundles you need? So the park is going to be closed to the public from 7 a.m. Wednesday until 6 a.m. the next morning. There'll be 6 banners, each 6 feet tall and 2 feet wide, featuring the logo of the Conservancy and the respective restaurant or food provider. There will be 4 speakers to amplify live ambient level music in a limited section of the event footprint for a small band. They agreed to come back, the Conservancy agreed to come back to us and let us know what the details were here for the speakers. They will be spacing out the grills, so there won't be one big smokestack, and it'll dissipate quickly. There'll be staffing of about 100 people between the applicant, volunteers, chefs, and Union Square events. There are no plans right now to film any of this, but if that changes, they'll come back. The Conservancy will come back to us. Right now, there's going to be no corporate sponsor, but if that changes, they agreed to come back to us to discuss the details surrounding that, including signage. They'd love to have one to defray costs, but who knows? They're not really sure at this point. We do have a resolve in our resolution that they come back to us if they do get a sponsor. The committee felt it was one night. It was going to be a major cash source for the park, which does provide a ton of free programming for the public. So the committee on the whole supported this, and the executive committee voted on it and approved it unanimously 7-0-0-0.
Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none, we go to the next reso.
Thank you. The next resolution is supporting an appeal to the city to restore the bowling greens in the Mineral Springs area of Central Park. For the new members, Central Park is part of several community boards, as Gail had mentioned. So when something affects Central Park, their conservancy or other stakeholder will generally go to several of the boards, which is what happened here. Lawn sports are played in the Mineral Springs area of the park, which is just north of Sheep Meadow. In 2026, it'll be 100 years since the sports, lawn bowling and croquet, have been playing there. However, as you can imagine, after almost a century, the bowling greens have deteriorated, making participating in these sports more difficult and quite risky. The New York Lawn Bowling and Croquet Clubs regularly serve hundreds of New Yorkers over there, offering free lessons and community events for these sports, and has taken a lead in trying to get the greens upgraded in time for that 100th year anniversary. They've come to us for support as they lobby the Central Park Conservancy, the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, Yale's office, etc., for funds to rehabilitate the lawns for bowling, croquet, and other activities, and to restore the Mineral Springs buildings in that area to their historical appropriateness with increased functionality. This is very early in the planning stage. We didn't really see too many details, but the general request for support was well received by the committee, and there was general consensus to support. I know CB8 has also weighed in, and they are supportive of this as well. The executive committee voted to approve 7-0-0-0.
Okay, are there any conflicts with this application? Any questions to the resolution? Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none, the next reso and last one in Parks.
Back to Madison Square Park. The final resolution is from the Madison Square Park Conservancy for the Lucid Motors electric car display, which will be a marketing event in the park from July 22nd to 27th. It's going to be on the Southwest Gravel area. By contract with the city, the Conservancy is allowed 4 marketing events in the park per year. This will be one of them. The Conservancy has stated that it's receiving a very substantial contribution. There will be a display of an opaque display box, 21 feet by 8 feet by 9 feet, containing their new automobile. The car will be unveiled on July 26th in a promotion event. The image is on your packet. I believe it's page 13. It's basically a box with a car in it. Setup will be on the morning of July 22nd. The display starts later that day and ends with the big unveiling on July 26th. Clean up that night. During that week, the car is not going to be moved. It's going to stay in the box. Before the unveiling will take place, people can go up to the box and scan a QR code for more information. There'll be no music, except during the unveiling, there'll be a couple of small speakers. They're not distributing any food or pamphlets. If there are any digital images taken for there'll be proper notice, but that's probably going to be quite minimal anyway. Sanitation and queuing have been planned. Again, there shouldn't be too much there either. The committee recognized that this is a commercial nature, but as far as marketing events are concerned, it's not overly burdensome on the park, and there was general support. Plus, as I mentioned, the Conservancy is allowed 4 of these events per year. The executive committee approved this 7-0-0-0.
Okay. Any conflicts with this application? Any questions to the resolution? Any comments? All right, seeing none, we are voting on these 3 resolutions from Parks.
Athens.
Yes.
Eichmann.
Yes.
Rosnahan.
Yes.
Chu. Joseph.
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Garcia. Gashow.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Birchburg.
Yes.
Hayback.
Yes.
Lagasico.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Livesey.
Yes.
Lucid. McCall. Miller.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Sigmund.
Yes.
Slutsky is a yes. Schinkel.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes. Weintraub.
Yes.
Whalen. Yes. Yang. Yes.
Okay. They all pass, and we go to the joint public safety quality. Oh, this was a doozy. This was practically the whole board. Do we really need to go through this? Yes, we do. Layla? I think more people voted on this than were here tonight.
I know. It's really one of those, for the record. I think most of you were in attendance on this meeting. So it is a citywide zoning text amendment. It is for the open restaurants. And basically what this text says, and it's strictly zoning, and this is strictly what we discussed at the meeting, as you know. Basically, this text says that the basically chapter 1, section 4 of the zoning resolution would be erased. And this section of the zoning resolution basically regulates where sidewalk cafes can be installed. So all of this section of the zoning resolution under the Department of City Planning would be basically bumped to the Department of Transportation. So it's just a shift of regulation from one agency to another. And then we made it very clear in our resolution, as you know, that we actually like some of these regulations very, very much, and we want to make sure that they remain. And that the program that DOT is working on to implement needs to be done in consultation with the community boards. And we very much look forward to working with DOT. We also made it abundantly clear to DOT that enforcement is a big concern of ours, and that these open restaurant program can only be successful if it is backed by a comprehensive enforcement system that would basically allow for control of establishments that would be in contravention and violation of the rules. So what this resolution says very specifically is that we're comfortable shifting the authority on sidewalk cafes from the Department of City Planning to DOT. It will no longer be called sidewalk cafes. They will be open restaurants, and all the rules, guidelines for this program are currently under work by the DOT, and we look forward to working with DOT on the specifics.
Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this resolution? Are there any questions? Any comments to the resolution? Yes, Todd.
Okay, so I applaud the board and everything that was said and done at those committee meetings where we had that joint meeting, as Layla said. I don't know if people saw the New York Post. I think it was today or yesterday. There was this absolutely scathing editorial about the new projected programs and changes that are going to be, in theory, put in place under the DOT. And they make the point that the DOT has very little credibility on being able to manage something of this scale. And they were utterly scathing in their attitude that it could be done successfully. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but what we're doing in making these comments and working with the DOT, that's like our job, right? So, there's so much cynicism and people who doubt that this program can be carried on successfully. We have our work cut out for us, keeping the DOT's feet to the fire to make sure that the enforcement mechanisms that you mentioned are done, and that we call attention to it if they're not doing it.
Good point. Any other comments? Yes, Buzz.
Well, the main point is that over the next 2 years, the formal regulations will be written and cast in concrete. That's where we really need to put our input to make sure that the community board and the public are heard during that process.
Absolutely. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, we will vote on this resolution.
Yang. Yes. Whalen. Yes. Weintraub. Yes. Webb. Yes. Schinkel. Yes. Slutsman is a yes. Sigmund. Yes. Shapiro. Yes. Miller. Yes. Paul. Yes. Lucic. Yes. Livesey. Yes. Levy.
Yes.
Augustino.
Yes.
David. Yes. Hirschberg. Yes. Hartman. Yes. Haas. Yes. Goshak. Yes. Garcia. Yes. Brewer. Yes. Joseph. Yes. Shu. Yes. Brosnahan. Yes. Eichmann. Yes. Athanael. Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes. We move on to the Joint Public Safety, Quality of Life, and Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee resolution on Health and Fitness Text Amendment. Nick.
Thank you, Vicki. This is a resolution from the Joint Committees on Public Safety, Quality of Life, and Land Use. May I have it deemed read?
So deemed.
The Department of City Planning has proposed a citywide zoning text amendment to address the requirements and processes and locations where physical culture establishments are permitted. Physical culture establishments, PCEs, are businesses such as gyms, martial arts studios, yoga studios, and licensed massage therapy. The process for licensing and permitting these spaces is particularly onerous. The resolution describes all of the hoops that applicants must go through, and I won't bore you going through it up here, but it's really intentionally designed to be onerous. When it was created in the 70s, they were using the zoning text to combat crime, prostitution, so it was made particularly difficult because of that. The changes will streamline and simplify the process and eliminate barriers to entry by a lot of these businesses. For example, gyms and spas would be allowed to open and operate in commercial and manufacturing districts, and licensed massage therapy studios would be allowed where any other health and wellness business, physical therapy, or outpatient doctor's offices would be permitted. And that would be in residential, commercial, as well as manufacturing districts. What we hope this change will benefit is the commercial real estate vacancies in New York, as well as the general health and welfare of the citizens. Our main concern about this change would be, that there isn't a relapse of prostitution, human trafficking, and those other problems. But we've been reassured by all of the agencies and organizations that we spoke to that they're not concerned about that happening, that in fact there are other mechanisms in place to address those problems, and they don't really rely on the zoning anymore for that help. So the Joint Committee approved support of the text amendment 22000.
Okay. Does anyone have a conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none, we will take it to a vote.
Athanael.
Yes.
Eichmann.
Yes.
Brosnahan.
Yes.
Shu. Joseph.
Yes.
Brewer. Yes. Garcia. Yes. Goshak.
Yes.
Haas. Yes. Hartman. Yes. Hirschberg. Yes. David. Yes. Augustino. Yes. Levy.
Yes.
Livesey.
Yes.
Lucic.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Sigmund.
Yes.
Slutsman, yes. Schinkel.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Weintraub. Whalen.
Yes.
Yang.
Okay. The resolution passes, and Landmarks Committee, Layla.
Okay, so we had two applications this month, two resolutions. I would like them deemed read.
So deemed.
And we are going to bundle, if that's okay.
Okay.
The first application is for Villard House. It is at 390 Park Avenue. You're probably familiar with the building. The applicant is proposing to do a number of changes, restoration and alterations. Overall, the restorations were good and of good quality, and the committee was satisfied with that. Some of the alterations the committee felt were appropriate, so I'm just going to focus on those that the committee struggled with and that led to the conclusion of the resolution. Basically, if you look at the visual element on page 20, on the top of the page, you basically see this very large black limestone wall that is, this big monolith that basically serves as a sort of like backdrop to the plaza. So, it is designed in this, very minimalistic way, this big band of black limestone. The applicant is proposing to create a very large opening as well as a smaller opening, and you can see that on the lower portion of the proposed the elevation. Basically they want to chop off this big chunk of limestone to the south of the facade, and then they want to create a smaller opening that is only half of the height to the northern side of the wall. Overall, the committee felt that it was inappropriate, that it was a massive intervention, removal of a big chunk of historic fabric, and that we simply could not support such a massive intervention. Members of the committee called this a mutilation and really strongly objected to this element. Another alteration that the applicant is proposing is on the fourth floor level of the building. They're proposing to create a raised terrace. And the rationale is that currently the roof of the third floor that is abutting to the fourth floor is not level. So they basically want to raise the roof by creating, the sort of like terrace that would then be at grade and would permit the occupants of the fourth floor of the building to use this open space as, recreational space. And in order to do that, they would have to obviously install a railing that would be compliant with the Department of Building rules, and this railing would be visible. And it would be entirely visible. And the applicant, has shown the sight lines, clearly showing and demonstrating this visibility. Because of the minimalistic style of the building, basically, if you start adding anything, it really creates clutter and really goes against basically the essence of the building. So we also did object to this particular element. Once again, the restoration work we felt was appropriate, and we did not have any objection on that. So because of the alteration to the black limestone and the addition of this very visible railing, we recommended denial of the application for Villard House.
Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Any comments? All right, we will take this to a vote.
Actually, if we can bundle with the second.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Second application is the Villard Houses located across the street from St. Patrick's Cathedral. It is part of the Palace Hotel. And so this is a building that was constructed in 1882. Architects are McKee, Mead, and White, beautiful set of brown stones, articulated in, the sort of like tripartite articulation with a big courtyard. Basically, this is sort of like a very simple application that has turned, and a very simple project that has turned into a little bit of a quandary. So it's a facade restoration, plain, simple facade restoration. The building is old, it has been really well maintained, and they are continuing to take good care, and they need to do some stone replacement. So in order to do that, they have to submit samples to the LPC, and LPC staff approves the samples and says, okay, yes, it matches. This applicant has gone through every single quarry in the world, including China, sourcing stone to do this work. And they actually provided photographic evidence of the samples that they have submitted to LPC. LPC has continuously told them that the samples are not a match. Instead, now LPC is encouraging them to apply for an application for a replacement rather than in kind with brownstone, to actually use cast stone, which is a man-made material. It's the equivalent of pink slime for stone. You basically take like aggregate of stuff that you didn't that you came out when you were cutting stone, and you mix it with cement and glue, and it basically makes this material that you can chop and cut. This material, cast stone, does not age and patina the same way natural stone does. So LPC is basically telling the applicant that because they couldn't find a match with natural material, they have to go a route that is going to lead to maybe actually they will still not have a match, because who knows if the cast stone manufacturer is going to actually accomplish that. And also in the long run, it is going to age and patina very differently from the rest of the building. So based on the photographic evidence that the applicant showed us, we actually are of the belief that one sample is actually a very close match. It's not a perfect match, we recognize that, but it is a very close match. So we are denying this application for cast stone use, but also telling LPC to basically approve the natural material that this applicant has sourced, that has gone through great length and tremendous effort to actually do the right thing. So it is a denial, it is not a punishing denial. I really want to emphasize that. Basically, we're just telling LPC, please approve the sample that was provided a month ago, and let this applicant move on with quality work that they're proposing to do.
Simple request.
Hopefully.
Yes. Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Any comments? Okay, seeing none, we can now vote on these two resolutions.
Athanael. Yes. Eichmann.
Yes.
Rosnahan.
Yes.
Chu. Joseph.
Yes.
Brewer. Yes. Garcia.
Yes.
Gottschalk.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Hartman. Yes. Hirschberg.
Yes.
Payback.
Yes.
Logasico.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Livesey.
Yes.
Yusef.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Sigmund.
Yes.
Skunskin, yes. Hinkle.
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Weintraub.
Yes.
Whalen.
Yes.
Yang.
Okay, it passes, and that takes us to a report from the T&E Vice Chair, Sam. Many of you are probably wondering why we had so many people at the public session talking about the bike lane and Fifth Avenue, and I think they didn't realize we're not voting on this. This is a report. And so, Sam, be my guest.
Yeah, that's correct. We are not voting on a resolution tonight, and that comes from the fact that we did not craft a resolution or take a vote at our committee meeting. And EJ's away, by the way. Before I explain just how we got to where we got to, I just want to say that I think it should be based on hearing everybody's comments at the beginning of the meeting, that it should be very clear that both T&E and CB5 have been very supportive of bike lanes throughout my time on the committee and for all of the time I've been on the board. We are broadly supportive of the DOT's rollout of the bike network. And the reason we came to a decision not to take a vote was partly because of our concerns about enforcement, but also the broad plan that was delivered was being presented to us in a piecemeal approach. So we declined to take a vote on the proposed pedestrian and bicycle lane improvements for 3 reasons. First, the plan for the Fifth Avenue busway was always intended to be a comprehensive plan, which includes a busway, includes pedestrian improvements, and includes a bike lane. We were uncomfortable approaching this project, which is fairly significant, in a piecemeal approach. And there was a lack of clear timelines around temporary treatments being employed as an interim solution, and who would be responsible for the maintenance. So that was the first reason. Second reason, we'd been asked to evaluate the proposal just days after it was released and presented to the Fifth Avenue Busway Community Advisory Board. For a little bit of background, in August 2020, we were advised that a proposal would be put to us in September 2020. That never occurred, and the next we heard of it was on June 15th, 2021, for a Community Advisory Board presentation on June 19th, and then it was presented to us on June 21st. Given the strong public attendance at that meeting, and given the comment both for and against the plan, particularly from members of the public and also the bids, we felt very strongly that more dialogue was required and more notice was particularly required given the lack of notice that was provided. And then finally, which is the sort of ongoing issue, and probably per Todd's point, as well as many others, we've been taking these resolutions on bike lanes for years. And in every resolution, we have asked for bike or cyclist education and enforcement of existing cycling-related laws. This presentation, again, did not even mention any of the measures to be taken, which of course is in keeping with a sort of general perception by the committee, and probably by extension the board, that measures are not being taken on bicycle safety and are even potentially being willfully ignored. I think there was a frustration amongst the committee that the DOT presents the bike lane improvements or bike lane rollout every single time without addressing a key section of a resolution that has been repeated again and again and again and again. So as a result, just to be clear, while we have supported every bike lane the DOT has ever proposed, and we are certainly in favor of creating a Manhattan-wide cycling lane network, we believe, based on the volume of concerns that we hear on a regular basis from members of the public, we need safety and enforcement to be front and center to any additional proposals that we consider. So to that end, we wrote a letter with those 3 points to the DOT, and hopefully when they return with a bike lane plan or a busway plan, we will hear in detail about their plans for ensuring enforcement of the existing cycling laws, various signage that we've requested that educate bike riders that they're not allowed to ride on the sidewalk. And despite the fact that we are keenly aware that cars and trucks kill more people than bikes do, and to that point that was raised earlier about zero pedestrians being killed by bikes, we're talking about a perception of safety here. And it's just like anything that if you feel like you can't walk across the street without being run over by a bike, it doesn't matter necessarily whether the bike will actually run you over, but it's important to address the fact that people are frightened. And this has come up again and again and again. So letter was sent, and DOT thanked us for the letter, and we will wait and see.
Good. Thank you, Sam. I think we'll be having, I heard from, and I'm sure the board office has too, the Fifth Avenue bid. They would like to give a presentation of their plan, and they're working closely with DOT, so that will come to T&E and perhaps exec, and even if the full board would like to hear it, it depends, but we'll see how that unfolds.
Great. They gave us a brief sort of heads up on that presentation,
Right.
and it's very comprehensive,
Yeah.
so it's worth having a look at.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, that, oh, sorry, who is that? Chuck.
Web portal, or do we have access to it to know what position we took?
I don't know, has it been put up?
It's not been put up yet.
It isn't up yet, Chuck. Okay. All right, anybody else? If there's no new business, I would just like to really thank you, everyone, for venturing out this evening. It's a first. And as I said earlier, I'll keep you apprised of how things are going to unfold with hybrids and where we're meeting. I'm not quite sure. We do know for a fact where we're meeting in September, or?
It needs to still be confirmed.
Okay.
I'll get it out as soon as.
Okay. And I again want to thank Todd for the space. This is wonderful. And I want to thank Marisa for the work and the board office for the work that you guys have done in putting all of this together in the midst of all of what's been going on. So thank you very much, everyone. The meeting is adjourned. Have a lovely evening and stay safe.